You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Laura Reilley, founder of Northeast Legal Nurse Consulting in Massachusetts. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Great to see you, Laura. I'm very excited. Thank you. I'm very excited to have you here and discuss what being a legal nurse entails and the launch of your business, which is going very well, and we're happy to hear it. Before we get into it, I do want to talk about our friends at Lex Reception real quick, one of our sponsors. So less admin, more time for you. Switch off knowing your calls are covered by Lex Reception. From answering calls and messages in real time to appointment scheduling, your clients will receive the care and support they need with Lex Reception. Their legal answering specialists are on hand 24/7, so you'll never miss a call or a future case. With a custom scripting software that can seamlessly integrate with your current workflow, Lex will make sure every potential client gets fantastic service from the very first call. And they are very nice over there. We've spoken several times. Lex Reception, check them out if you need somebody to answer your calls. All right, Laura, back to you. First of all, I want to give you a shout out for coming to the Lawyer Stories Mix and Mingle in Boston in early November.
Yes.
Had a great time. I hope you did too.
It was such a blast, and I was just so excited to meet you, and here we are today. I feel like most people, when they get to know you, it's through social media, and I think I'm probably one of the first people who actually met you for the first time in person, so I love that.
I'll tell you, we've been I don't want to say we've been making the rounds, but we've been going to like different places where we've met people that have been on shows, and like the event thing has been amazing for meeting people and new people. And, I really appreciate you coming out. And I think Boston, the Mix and Mingle was a lot of fun. We've had events now in New York, Miami, being part of an event in Atlanta. And, we're looking to continue that momentum. So thanks for coming out. It was awesome.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me. It was great. I made some great connections and people I'm still talking to, and you obviously. So I'm looking forward to the next one, hopefully someplace warm.
Yeah, well, we're looking February. Hopefully you make your way down there. It could be pretty good. There is something on the horizon for February, I will say that.
Awesome.
So, Laura, you're a nurse, right? So one thing I often see, like on Instagram, I see these things pop up. I see the advertisements. I see legal nurse, and I'm just like, I don't really want to ask straight up, like, what does a legal nurse do? I've tried to look it up because it's really interesting to me, but you're here with me today. You're here on the Lawyer Stories podcast. I want to hear from you, Laura Reilley. Like, tell us what a legal nurse does.
Yeah, I'm so honored just to be your first legal nurse consultant on your podcast. So thank you again. So basically, as a legal nurse, I've been a nurse for 15 years. So I have a lot of experience. I've worked on several different floors throughout the hospital, and I work at one of the best hospitals in the country. So, my experience is different. Everyone's clinical background is different, but I'd say mine is pretty, widespread. And just the knowledge and skills I have working at a hospital in the city is great. So I work with lawyers. Attorneys are my clients, and I help them any case they have that involves a medical record. So it could be a personal injury case, medical malpractice, workers' comp. There's a whole slew of different types of practice, as you know. I basically work with lawyers and help them with the records. I take them, I analyze them, I look through everything that's involved in 4,000 pages of records, and I pull out all the pertinent information that they need for their case. So every case is different. Every lawyer has specific needs or wants, like what they need help with. but I basically save them and their paralegals time and money by going through the records and pulling out all the information they need, and then nicely laying it out in a chronology where I, explain all the medical terminology. I use illustrations to help the lawyers better understand the diagnoses. I pull in medical research to back up, my opinions. I do opine on causation and all of that. So I'm ultimately basically just helping the lawyer understand what happened to their client.
Okay. That's
from a medical perspective.
Yeah. And from like the legal perspective, like the procedural perspective, it's interesting to hear, instead of the paralegal, or like maybe the legal secretary or administrative assistant, or the attorney paging through 4,000 pages of legal or medical records, like, so they would contact you, they would contact Northeast Legal Nurse Consulting in Massachusetts and say, hey, Laura, like, I got all these documents in discovery. Is that how it works? Like, can you come over?
Or just even when they first get a case, sometimes I help with determining if there's even merit to the case, because you can be told by a family member, oh, this happened, X, Y, Z happened in the hospital, and it sounds horrible, and the person died. And then you look at the records and you're like, they actually upheld all the standards of care. There's really not a case here. So I can assist from all phases of the case, start to finish, from merit reviews to taking it to trial. I can help with deposition and, coming up with potential questions that the defense would ask, because I can read if I know the story, I read the records, I know what they're going to try to rebuttal.
They put you on the stand at all? Like, do you go on the witness
stand?
No?
So I work behind the scenes right now. So there are nurses that are expert witnesses, and they are deposed, they get up on the stand. That's not something I'm interested in doing right now. So all my work is purely behind the scenes. It's like to help the lawyers litigate the case behind the scenes, to get them prepared for trial, give them everything they need to get there. And then if they do need a nurse to, serve as an expert, I also assist in, I'm part of a community of hundreds of LNCs across the country. So I know a lot of LNCs who just do that side of it.
You know a lot of who? Say that again.
LNCs.
Who? LNC?
LNCs, legal nurse consultants.
LNCs. Okay, LNC for legal nurse consultant. I'm sorry, I should have.
That's okay.
Picked up on that, but I'm glad I asked now instead of at the end of the episode. Okay, so
I'm here to explain it all to you, so
enlighten me. So is it better for an LNC to be connected with like one law firm, or do you, like, and if they get, if they're just doing personal injury cases, they could always say, hey, Laura, we got 4,000 pages worth of documents for you to go through, or do you constantly look for new firms to associate yourself with?
So it really, I mean, yes, we are always looking for new firms. It depends, the size of the firm. They could be a small firm with just one or two lawyers, and they don't really have the, quantity of cases that would sustain us and keep us going. But so that is my goal, is just to find, a few firms that just have so many cases that that's all I need,
Right.
But every firm is different, and I'm lucky that right now I have, kind of got a little bit of a reputation in the city. And so lawyers, once they work with me, they're giving my name to other people. And so it is like a trickle effect of, referral.
I think that's great. So I think you're still like moonlighting over at like a hospital or something, like being like a nurse, like, so like an actual, like, sort of like, going into the room and like,
an actual nurse,
doing like the nursey thing,
the nurse things.
Okay. Yes. So like, what is, tell us the difference. Like, do you always want to hold on to like doing that sort of like that, being in that space in the medical field, or do you like this better, or like tell us sort of like.
That's a good question. So I work per diem at the hospital, and just depending on my caseload, like that month, I can pick up more shifts or less shifts. It's been kind of crazy this past month. I just got a few new attorney clients, and then I picked up a bunch of shifts, and then I got all these cases, and I was but it's good. But I still am at the hospital per diem, because, until I'm ready to really say I'm leaving bedside nursing forever, you need to still practice, because so many things change at the hospital every week, and you have to be there doing it, or just to protect yourself in your
Yeah,
practice.
yeah. Like you need
And
like
protect
new
your,
methods of things and
yep,
like new training and
exactly.
new
It's like new
information.
documentation,
You have
new,
to kind of keep up with that. You
yeah,
don't want to let
exactly.
that
It's
lapse.
like
Right.
new products, like every week they're rolling out. It didn't always used to be this way, by the way, but like new products, like new G tubes, extensions, and just stuff. You're like, what is this? Like, I didn't even get an email about this. And so it's just, there's a lot of change and you just have to be there to kind of keep up with the flow. So I am still working per diem there. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
no, that's
not,
great. What a great
yeah.
way to like kind of branch out. Like do you have interest in the law? Like in terms of, you're working with lawyers, do you have just like a general interest in like what lawyers do
I
and being
do,
part of the
and
case and like
I definitely do because I feel like the biggest part of me as a nurse is that I'm like a fierce advocate for my patients, and that totally translates into law practice. Like what do lawyers do? They're trying to serve justice for their clients where something horrible happened. You hear
yep.
these stories and it's like it can be bad. And so I do feel like that translates right over into my LNC practice. And I am getting more interested in the law process because I don't know a lot about law.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I mean,
Um,
I'm sure they're happy to, answer any questions and
yeah.
vice versa. I mean, you're really like you have all this big foot in the door with being a medical professional. So you really provide a lot of value to these firms. Now, before I forget, are you just doing Boston area? Shout out to Boston, by the way, Massachusetts. I'm in
Yeah.
Massachusetts too, so that's cool.
Yes, I
But
know we're both.
what are you like all states or just Boston or Massachusetts?
So I'm lucky. I can work with lawyers across the country because everything's
Okay.
electronic. All the
Yeah.
records are electronic and obviously there's Zoom. So I actually have, I think the most amount of attorneys right now is out of Atlanta. And
Oh,
again, that was
cool.
just kind of a referral thing that happened. I have a friend down there who was injured and was in the hospital, and she had a little medical malpractice case. So I was helping her with that. And, her attorney was just great. And he asked if he could send my information around. And I was like, of course. So I have got a few new clients from that. So
Do you ever get contacted by clients like who don't have an attorney yet?
yeah, a lot of friends at the hospital will be like, oh, my sister had this happen. And they tell me their whole story. And I've actually had a few people reach out to me on social media
Hmm.
through friends that I work with. And same thing, they were like, this happened. Like, what do you think? And so I do definitely try to help as much as I can. I'm like, well, you need to find a lawyer first, but like, I know lawyers, so I can
Yeah,
help you
right.
with that. And yeah, so it is coming kind of from all directions right now.
That's awesome. And when they send you the documents, is it like encrypted or something, like on email? Like if it's
So
discovery, like if it's very like, if it's medical records, you got to assume that there's some confidential information, right? So,
right, we have safe, like we use this app Dropbox that's
yeah,
all
okay, I use
safe
Dropbox.
and confidential. And then all of our emails are all confidential and coded or whatever they need to be so that
Gotcha.
there won't be any breach. So yeah, attorneys kind of sometimes they'll just send me a link through the email, sometimes they'll send it through Dropbox, but
So you don't get like a big brown box in the mail. Like,
no,
here you go, Laura.
nope.
Like you got to go through all, but you do use Dropbox, and everything remains confidential. Like no
Yep.
matter if they're sending it from Atlanta or they're sending it from Boston. That's all.
Yeah. And everything's electronic, even like the few places, nursing homes or, older facilities,
Yep.
not like hospitals, but, like little outpatient centers. If they do anything not online, if they do any written records, they still upload it online.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's always electronic for me, which is easier.
Okay, so tell us like when and I asked this to like all the lawyers and other people on the show, but like when did you know excuse me, when did you know you wanted to become a nurse? Like did you have a moment in your life that you're like, I want to help people and this is the way I want to do it, or like
Yeah.
somebody's sick or like how did that happen?
Yeah. It's a funny story because I feel like I was just talking about this a couple of years ago in front of my mom. And I was just like, when I was in high school, my godmother's a nurse. Both my parents, they weren't nurses, but they worked in hospitals. My grandmother was a nurse. So I've
Okay.
definitely been that's our family is in medicine. Right. But my grandmother, she was in the hospital when I was in high school, and just seeing her go through that, I kind of thought after that, oh yeah, like I'm going to be a nurse. I had never thought of anything else. Right. So I believed that was my first, realization that I was going to be a nurse. And I was talking about that in front of my mom, and she was like, Laura, you talked about being a nurse when you were like 3 years old.
Oh, really?
And I was like, what? I was shocked. I had
did you
no
say
idea.
Your mom was a nurse? Your grandmother was a nurse?
My grandmother was a nurse, and my godmother, who I am very close to, is a nurse.
Okay.
So lots of nurses.
3 years old, huh? You were carrying around that little like kit.
Yeah. I'm like, are you kidding me? She's like, yeah, you've been talking about it since you were little. So, you hear people say it's like a calling, and it truly is,
That's awesome.
It's not an easy job, and it's not for everyone. And there has to be more than just a like, oh yeah, I think that looks cool. That's what I'm going to do.
Laura, have you ever heard the song, the old reggae song by, I think his name's Gregory Isaacs, called Night Nurse?
Yes.
You have?
Okay, like I can't tell you the lyrics, but like saying that, I'm like, yes.
Okay, yeah, you should listen to it later. It's pretty good.
Okay, I'm gonna listen to it later.
Night Nurse. I think it's Gregory Isaacs. Okay. So all right, so it was something that you always sort of wanted you had in your mind that that's what you would do. You had some family in it, and your mom reminded you at 3 years old you were all about it. So you have like some designations that I saw. Already I didn't know like the acronym for nurse, right? What was it? You told
RN, registered nurse.
What's that?
Oh, were you talking about LNC?
LNC,
legal nurse consultant.
Legal nurse consultant, but you have a BSN, an RN, and a CPN.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what those three are?
So RN is registered nurse.
Yep.
So, and BSN is a Bachelor in Science in Nursing. So I went to college and got. So you can get. Most people now skip the associates. That was only a 2-year degree course because a lot of hospitals now don't accept that as, a credential when hiring nurses. But that back in the day used to be more of an option. So you could get your associates or you could get your bachelor's, which was a 4-year program out of college. So that's where that is, Bachelor's in Science of Nursing. So I went to URI and got that. And then I got so once I took the license, the nursing license, that's when I got my RN as a registered nurse.
Nice. And CPN?
Certified pediatric nurse. So that was just like another exam I took too.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So like within your business, Northeast Legal Nurse Consulting, right? So what's a typical day like for you? If you have a project, a case you're working on, how does that go?
So every day, every week is a lot different. Like I said before, like if I have cases, then I'm working on them in the office, or if I, and then I'm at the hospital the next day. So really day to day is quite different. But typically how it goes is I will speak with the attorney, and they will kind of tell me what's going on, what the case looks like. And then I ask them to send over the records. I take a peek through the records, and then I will do a cost estimate for them. So I kind of, seeing the amount of pages and what's relevant to their claim, I can guesstimate within a couple hours how long it's going to take me. And so my attorney clients really like that because they have an idea of what it's going to cost. I'm not just like, sending them the invoice 2 weeks later and they're like, oh, what's this?
Yeah.
So I send them an agreement with the cost estimate, and if they are agreeable, they sign, and then I get going on the case, and I usually am done with the reports in like 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks. I have a pretty quick turnaround right now. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that is good, because a lot of clients, they'll like be like, oh, the statute of limitations is like next month, or can you have this done in a couple weeks? So even though, it's been sitting, they've had this case for years sitting with but they have so much, they're so busy that it's like when it comes up, they need help now. So that's where I'm at, or how I'm like very useful to lawyers, is just being readily available and getting stuff done quick.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. So when you receive a project, what's the first thing you're looking at to analyze?
It depends on the type of case, right? It's totally different whether it's a personal injury case or, a medical malpractice case or a long-term disability case. I've been working with an attorney who's amazing out of the city, and she gives me long-term disability cases. So people have some injury and they are unable to work, and she has all these clients who have been denied their benefits, their long-term benefits. So she's great because she'll like show me their claim denial notice, and so I'll see. So she's asking me for a medical summary, and I do that. I summarize all the medical records and I tell her exactly what's going on with the client, like what their disabilities are, how they affect them. But when I see in the claim, the denial claim, I'm seeing exactly what the reasoning is that the insurance company denied them. Mm-hmm. And so like one recently, it said, oh, there was an evidence of physical abnormalities in the exams. But so I went through the records and I found a slew of physical abnormalities. So I just went and made a list, like 1 through 30 of any note I saw that of this client had an abnormal exam. I put it in there. So a lot of people do just want like an LNC to provide a medical summary, but I can do more than that. I can also just do a medical summary, but I do more than that in that I'm kind of working with the attorney and with that specific situation, and I'm looking for more in the records than just a summary. I'm looking for the tiny little clues that, tiny little pieces of information that a paralegal is not going to pick up on. A lawyer who's got 1,000 other cases in a busy day isn't going to be like reading the records word for word like I am,
Totally.
And so I take all that, give it to them, and then back it up with medical research because I have access, I'm a nurse at a hospital, so I have access to tons of medical journals. And so I back all that up. And so every case is different. But I always go above and beyond with everything I do. And I love it.
Yeah, that's all. And is this like an up and coming thing, like the legal nurse thing, would you say?
So you know what? Funny story is when I first heard about legal nurse consulting, I was 23 years old, just graduated college, and I was at my little hometown library studying for my boards. And this woman came up to me and she was like, oh, are you studying for your boards? And I was like, yeah, like, why are you talking to me? I'm so stressed out right now. This is like, because I actually got my job offer to the hospital I still work at before I graduated.
Wow.
But I needed to pass my boards. If I passed my boards, I still had the job. If I didn't, I lost the job.
Really?
So it was a lot of pressure. It was, a stressful time. So I'm just sitting there like, why are you talking to me? What do you want? And she said, oh, I do legal nurse consulting. I make a lot of money and I work from home. And this is kind of what I do. And I was like, okay, cool. And somehow I just put that in the back of my mind and it's always stayed there.
Okay.
Because I never, nurses now, it's a hard job. You don't stay working at the bedside forever. And so you're kind of always thinking, well, what am I going to do next? And I never wanted to do all the things that everyone else was doing. Everyone's going back to school to get their NP to become a nurse practitioner, or climbing the ranks within the hospital and, leadership wise and becoming a nurse manager and blah, blah. And I was like, that's not what I came to nursing for. And I know that I can't do this forever, but that's also just not where I see my future. Mm-hmm. And I always had the legal nurse consulting thing in the back of my head. And so a few times when I was like having rough moments with nursing, I started researching it, being like, well, can I do this? And then about 2 years ago, I just was like, yeah, I need the change. I think I'm ready now. And I started looking into it. I spoke to LNCs, that I just met on social media, and I just, did my research, and I was like, yep, this is what I'm going to do. And
Go ahead. Finish up.
Go ahead.
Did you launch your own thing, or were you working for somebody first?
No. So I just, you can do it a lot of different ways. Some firms have legal nurse consultants working within the firm. But I just knew that I wanted to be my own boss, and I just wanted to do it myself. And so I was just like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to give it everything I have. And so I just kind of went into it like that, and here I am. So
awesome. Yeah. Congratulations. Wicked cool. So your website indicates that you can tailor a comprehensive product to each client. Tell us what that means.
Okay. Yeah. So sometimes, depending on the case, like if say it's a personal injury case, someone was in an accident and their client fell and broke her ankle, and there's thousands of pages of physical therapy talking, thousands of notes about degree of flexion of her ankle and this and that. And sometimes like it's helpful to just go through and pull out all that information and put it in a table or a graph so that the attorney can see the trajectory of their disability or their injury. And like, that takes a long time. The lawyers aren't going to do that. They don't have time. Paralegals don't have time. So that's where I come into play. If they say, hey, this would really be helpful, that's what I do. Or like a recent medical malpractice case I did, they needed to know the exact time that these certain medications were administered and the dosages. And it's not all in one clear spot in one page. It's like throughout thousands of pages. So I went and made a table and, wrote out the timing and the dosage and the physician who had ordered it and what time it was given and all that. So that's how I kind of tailor it. Like whatever the attorney needs, whatever they tell me would be helpful, I find a way to pull out that information and give it to them in a way that's like the most helpful and easy to understand.
Gotcha. So like, do you have any advice for somebody wanting to be a legal nurse, an LNC?
Yeah, I mean, it's entrepreneurship, you're kind of doing it yourself. It's a tough battle. But it's awesome because you're working for yourself, you're doing something you're really passionate about. So I think there's a quote about, success isn't, how many times you fall, it's how many times you get up, something like that. I've definitely learned that you are going to make mistakes, in business, and it's not about those mistakes. It's how many times you can get up and show up after that, because a lot of people aren't doing that. They'll hit their first roadblock or their first mistake and then just quit. And with this line of work, it's really pushing through all those situations. It's getting out of your comfort zone. Like I hate to say it, I'm just a nurse, but I didn't go to school for marketing or business or anything. So a lot of this I'm just learning on the fly. And it's a lot, and it can be stressful, but it's also so rewarding because
it's kind of fun, right? It's a little fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
I mean, you've met like a lot of people like through, the social media space and doing like events and like going to marketing things and, I don't like the term picking people's brain, but like talking to people and like learning things like, I'm sure you've met some good people along the way.
Oh, definitely. Yep. It's great. It's been so much fun, and putting yourself out there, it's how you succeed. You're not going to make anything happen by just sitting at home. So
right, and when it's yours, you want to work on it all the time, right? Like
all the time.
You want
no
to
days off.
you want to keep getting those clients, getting those businesses. But I hear you. Yeah, that's awesome.
I definitely have days where I'm like, I'm not going to do any work today for my business. And then I pull and open my email and I'm responding to people. You can't stop.
Yeah. Oh, you can't stop. No way.
Yeah.
So what would you say is your greatest strength is as a nurse, and like, how does it translate into being an LNC?
Probably. I mean, there are actually, now that I think about it, like a lot of different qualities of nurses that translate over to LNC practice. But I think for me is I've always been like the biggest advocate for my patients. Like I'm not shy when it comes to speaking to doctors and, holding my ground and giving my opinion. If I am concerned about a patient and I reach out and they're kind of like, oh, no, they're fine. I'm like, no, they're not because of X, Y, and Z. And this is my concern. And that definitely translates over to LNC practice because again, I do feel like I'm making a difference in people's lives through these cases. I feel like going through the records, finding things that would have been missed by a paralegal or an attorney, that can make the difference in a better settlement, a better outcome. And these are patients' lives, And again, like most of the cases I work on, horrible things have happened to these people. And so, you could say it's just money, but it's also it's more than that,
Yeah.
it's just justice, and it's giving the families, saying you were right, that what happened was wrong. This person was negligent.
Right.
And that means a lot. And so I feel like I'm still advocating for people, you know, doing my LNC work, because I'm just helping get them the best outcomes from a really crappy situation.
Yeah. Well, you can hear your passion about it,
Yeah.
and how much you enjoy it and how much you actually care about your patients. So I think
Yeah.
that's a great thing. Do you have like a particular case you want to tell us about that, you feel like you made like a huge difference in?
Probably, I mean, there's a lot, but the most significant was probably just my first case, because here I am brand new and I'm like so into it. I was like dreaming about this case, eating, breathing, dreaming
Oh
it.
yeah. Yeah.
So this poor man was just driving down the road on his motorcycle and was T-boned and died.
Wow.
And so the insurance company, the lawyer was trying to claim pain and suffering. So there's apparently a lot of money
Oh
in
yeah.
that claim. But it's also very difficult to prove. And so the lawyer was like, I think that, the insurance company is trying to say he was dead on the scene, but I don't think he was, because I read somewhere that he was pulling at, something. And I was like, all right. So I take a look at it, and he in fact had come to, was conscious a few times throughout the last moments of his life, and it was not pretty. He it was, but so I helped prove through, I found they had administered medications that are sedatives, because he did wake up and he was trying to pull at his oral airway and doing this, and so they gave him these medications twice throughout the rescue. And I'm like, if he was dead on the scene, like totally not responsive and all that, they wouldn't have given those medications. Like,
Hmm.
he was clearly in and out of consciousness. And so I looked through like the Glasgow coma scales, which tells you how alert someone is. And I just dug through those, and I saw that those scales were only recorded every 5 minutes. So in between that, he could have been having episodes of consciousness that just weren't recorded.
Hmm.
And so I really thought about that case a lot and just felt so bad for this guy. And they ended up, the insurance company settled, and they got 2.5 million. And so
Wow.
the paralegal did say, like, it is thanks to your report, we were able to get what we wanted. And so that felt great, because
It's amazing.
he
Congratulations.
deserved that, and I was
Yeah.
like, yeah.
It's amazing. Congratulations. You're already making a huge impact in the legal
Oh,
community.
thanks.
Yeah. And so you don't, even though you do have like a pediatric designation, you don't only do pediatric work.
Yeah, I've actually
Um,
only done a couple pediatric medical malpractice cases. So I float throughout the hospital, so I see all different specialties. I see ortho. I worked with complex care patients with CP and neurological deficits for a long time. And I go to the cardiac unit now, and I go all over. So I see a bit of everything. So, I'm not just taking care of like kids with broken ankles. Like, it's a lot. It's a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
more than
no,
that. I
yeah,
float to the oncology floor and the bone marrow transplant floor. So I do have, a wide background in seeing a lot of different things. And then it does just translate into adult medicine.
yeah, for sure. So like, where do you see Northeast Legal Nurse Consulting in the future?
So definitely just trying to grow my attorney client base. I'd love if I could, pull back on the marketing piece of it, because that's definitely the hardest part for me, is just
If you could hold
marketing.
back
And
on it, is that what you said?
yeah, so I would love to just have client base that's fully off of referrals
Gotcha. Yep.
through attorneys, long-term goals here,
Yeah.
where I was just getting enough work through word of mouth through attorneys, because I was nervous coming into this business, like, oh, you hear such, some attorneys have bad reputations, and I've met so many lovely, lovely attorneys, and only, one or two ones that I probably wouldn't want to have another conversation with. So, but once you get, like, I've worked with a few that I really love, and we just communicate so well. And then when they refer me to someone else, I know that they're referring me to another person that's like them, that works like them, that is, honest and kind and easy to work with. So that would probably be, the goal in the future, is just have like a larger referral base and just be even more busier than I am now.
That's awesome. Well, we know a lot of attorneys here at Lawyer Stories, and
Yes,
however we can help connect you, and if you ever see somebody on our Instagram or in our community that you want us to do a warm introduction to, like, it would be our pleasure. And
totally.
you definitely have to sign up for or register for Lawyer Stories Connect if you haven't already.
Yes. No, I have. I've listened to a few of your episodes, and it's like a few attorneys that I've tried reaching out to and havenn't heard back from. So I'm like, oh, I gotta get to him. Like, he seems so
I mean,
great.
if there's somebody, we could talk offline about it, and I could tell you, because I've met thousands of attorneys. I've interviewed this 160 episodes, and so it'd be like my pleasure to, if you want to do like a warm intro, I'd reach out to them and say, hey, are you in need for something like this? I have a great person for you.
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
That'd be
definitely
awesome.
Talk, and please use me as a resource for anything.
Yeah, thank you.
So tell us something about yourself, like not on your resume, like not legal or nurse like related or medical related. Sorry.
Let's see. Well, so I live in Kingston, Massachusetts. It's down on the South Shore, by Plymouth. And I'm like, oh, not everyone knows. I was talking to someone recently, and I'm like, oh, by Cape Cod. And they were like, I'm like, where are you from that you don't know Cape Cod? And he was from Ireland. So,
Plymouth is though, right? I mean,
what'd you say?
Plymouth is nice though. Plymouth is.
Oh, yeah. So I did not grow up down here. I grew up in Ashland, which is a little suburb right in between Boston and Worcester.
Oh yeah. No, I'm over in Central. Yep.
Cool. Yeah, you're a bit farther down. But
yep.
I met my husband, and he had grown up down here, and I was like, I'll never move to the South Shore. And of course, I moved down here, and I love it. It's just beautiful. We have the most beautiful beaches.
Oh, it's awesome.
Restaurants, it's awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's where I live. I have 2 young kids and a dog. She's our 3rd child. And just growing this business, working as a nurse, just crazy times right now. But
what's your dog's name?
Brighton.
Brighton, okay. Yeah. After Brighton, Mass?
So we rescued her a year ago, and it's not after Brighton, Mass. They made a point to say, no, it was after some mountain. They were skiers out in the West Coast. There was some Brighton mountain or something. But we had a dog before for like 11 and a half years and lost him suddenly. And then we found Brighton Girl a few weeks later, and I was like, wow, I really wanted to, heal and have some time in between, but some things are just meant to be, and she's perfect. So
yeah, it's great. Yeah. So Laura, is there anything else that we've left out today that you'd like to share with the Lawyer Stories community?
I think we covered a lot. I mean, yeah, I don't think so.
Good. Well, we congratulate you on Northeast Legal Nurse Consulting. Yeah. And Laura's in Massachusetts. How can we contact you?
So email, or I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, any or all of the above. I also have a website, so I'm sure you'll be posting the links to all.
Yeah, or just get in touch with me, and I can put you in touch with Laura.
Yes.
So that's awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me again. It was a pleasure.
Of course, it was awesome. And wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.